Tonight in the Spotlight, we look at restoring the constitutional order and a Republican form of government. How should Trump respond to the lawfare from the Democrats and restore proper separation of powers? Matt Mehan is the Associate Dean of Hillsdale College in the D.C. School of Government, and he recently wrote about this for The American Mind, and he joins us now to discuss. And Matt, it's so great to have you on the show. You've known Peterson here forever. I got to meet you last time we were out in D.C., so it is great to have you here on the show. So what does Donald Trump need to do to combat all this lawfare out there right now?
Yeah, it's great to see you both. So he has to lay out a plan, or maybe Pam Bondi does at his direction, but he has to basically kind of give a way out of the lawfare, which has a certain order to it. He has to put justice first, and then I think he has to really induce people to tell the truth. What did Shakespeare say? Twill out, the truth twill out. We have to have the truth, and only then can mercy or clemency be given. And then the promise of a kind of restoration of peace and normal relations where political opponents don't attack each other with the law and sick the law on each other like dogs, but instead use it fairly and have civil disagreement and debates and political arguments. And so I think you have to kind of have a beginning, middle, and end to the whole program.
Now, this is an incredibly important point because, well, all of us are riding pretty high right now. I sure am. I'm not sick of the winning. I'm enjoying it every day. There is the unfinished business. I mean, there's this looming question of a lot of injustice that has occurred over the last however many years. And, you know, as late, great Angelo Codevilla said, we're still in a cold civil war. And I worry that right now the right thinks we've won when, in fact, this is still an extremely divided country, right? We need to press on ahead, but full and total victory would be restoring that constitutional order. So you've been out with this message, which is extremely, extremely important. And I just want to say at the outset, the problem, I presume you agree, is that if it is perceived by people as just one side punching the other, and the other side coming back, that's how things cycle and escalate and actually get worse in a situation in which none of us wants to be in. Is that right?
That's right. You get the sort of Hatfields and McCoys, clan warfare by party, and the destruction of the rule of law where it's equally applied to all. And then that's like late Republic. That's snakes in the bed. That's the murder of emperors. That's the loss of liberty and self-government and constitutional order. So we have to avoid that at all costs. And so punishing one's political enemies, which is what the Dems have been doing for a long time now, and then hiding in our rightful fear of looking like we're punishing our enemies and thus perpetuating the cycle that they've started, it's a real problem. And I think that the way out of it, in a sort of, I think, very important way, is you can't do the sort of Beria secret police, show me the man and I'll show you the crime. But you have to think about what crime should be a prosecutorial sort of feature of Pam Bondi's Justice Department, the DOJ, that will help sort of clear the air and restore a kind of proper order. And I think that's a big focus on perjury and subordination to perjury, Section 18 of the Federal Code. And if that is first and foremost, I think a number of salutary effects will follow that will, I think, sort of dragnet out some of the real malefactors who've been playing at this lawfare game, while not repeating the same kind of disaster on our side that they've inflicted upon us. And I can explain more about that, but I do think that's a key piece to this puzzle.
Well, let's explain. Well, let's go into that. Let's explain more about it because, you're saying, look, what's needed is justice, right, as opposed to retribution. In order to get that, you need to get at the truth. And so you have a lot of potential crimes and things you could do to punish wrongdoers. But what you're saying is go after perjury. Basically, does this mean go after lying and try to get people to have to say the truth?
I mean, you can see it as a general theme of this administration, frankly, from the inaugural address to the outing of USAID chicanery. It really has been let's stop lying to one another. And so I think that is a kind of way of saying, look, we don't want to attack you. We don't want to hear the wailing of your women and the burning of your villages, Democrats. What we want is to restore political friendship with you. While we disagree, we're going to disagree honestly with one another. And so if you put perjury down as a major prosecutorial focus, you do two things. One, you do that. You reestablish truth-telling against lies, which is the fundamental engine of all the lawfare. They can't get away with most of their little conspiracies without being able to lie to Congress, to depositions, and to the press. So you basically put a line in the sand. We're not going to lie anymore. Two, I think you think of all of the perjury potential that could be had in the testimonies of those who've been preliminarily pardoned by Biden. Right, you've got Fauci and many other malefactors who've all been pardoned, which means they can't plead the fifth when they are put under oath anymore because self-incrimination doesn't lead to imprisonment. But they still could perjure themselves and lie, but they're not covered under those pardons for further perjury while under oath now. And so there's a double inducement to tell all the truth about the various lawfare conspiracies, the dishonesty, et cetera. And I think that's an enormous opportunity for them to basically face up to the law. And insofar as the law is reason, face up to right reason and realize that they have done something terrible and be forced into the public eye and face themselves in the mirror of public opinion, right? And then finally, hopefully with the specter of punishment, then ask for clemency under true terms, and then I think ideally be granted it. I think that process is a way of humiliating them in such a way that they are ashamed for their wrongdoing, right? Punishing those who are so far gone that they will play the martyr and lie and continue to perjure themselves, but also setting and reestablishing what is in the inaugural oath. Good faith, bona fides. It is the absolute foundation of all justice that what we say is what we mean, and what we say is what we do, and what we do is what we say, right? Like, this has got to be taken care of, and there's no better way than to focus on perjury, I think.
I love that you go through perjury and the fact that, because all this is going through, and we're trying to get to justice, right? True justice and what that actually means. And with the Democrats going through and saying, oh, Anthony Fauci, you're preemptively pardoned. It's okay. Everything's going to be fine. It's actually going to be the Achilles heel that could come through and actually restore some truth and justice for the American people, right? It's the one thing that we're actually really striving for from the public, because we haven't seen this done in so long, Matt.
Right. And it's establishing justice for the American people with an understanding that the widest form of justice includes some clemency and restoration of peace and friendship, even among the parties. And I think it's important for Donald Trump, Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, for all of them to say, this is actually for your good, too, lying, lawfaring, sneaking Democrats, right? This is good for you to fess up, right? Get your hand out of the cookie jar and tell mom and dad what you did wrong. Everyone's watching at home. Let's just be honest, right? I actually think that is extremely important for them and for us to have a country again.
Okay, so, I mean, let's stipulate for the record that no matter what Trump and Pam Bondi do, the left is going to be screaming about how, mirabile dictu, the government's being weaponized. I mean, we know that that's going to happen. They're already saying it. They were very fearful of Trump taking over because he might weaponize the DOJ, right? So we know that they're going to say that. Maybe walk through with some examples, if you could, of how this might work. I suppose those people are never going to change their minds, or the partisan hacks, the really bad people out there. But it strikes me that what you're describing is the court of public opinion changing on this, and at least coming to some sort of majority consensus as a people that these things were bad, they have been dealt with, and now we're moving on.
Yes, I think that's right. Look, to be just, you also have to appear just. And so I think it in one sense, the lying media is losing influence, as you well know. BlazeTV being a perfect example, right? New media is able to set a new kind of consensus, right? And so their lies, I don't think, will be as strong as they once were. And so basically the Trump administration to lay out a kind of apology for itself. This is what we're doing. This is why we're doing it. And so particular, I would say they need to pick cases where the facts without the confession are very clear. And once that's established, then it's an easy inducement. You need to just tell the truth. Cough this up. Now, if it's someone who's already been preemptively and unjustly pardoned, well, now it's the court of public opinion and they have to basically confess and purge themselves publicly. If it's someone who isn't under that dragnet of the preliminary pardons from Biden, well, then they have the specter of a real prosecution and prison time for perjury, but with the promise that, look, all you have to do is confess to all this that we've already proven to the American people, right, through the fact patterns. You just need to come clean. And then, yes, we will commute sentences. You will time served. We will treat people, in a very clement fashion. Trump has always been that way. I think his natural autopilot setting is actually a kind of huggy bear businessman who wants people to love himself, love each other, and get on, having a good time in life. I think it suits him. But I also think, like, if he does this, it will be a golden age of justice because it will be tinctured by mercy, and the appearance of justice will match justice being done, right? It won't be this division between fake justice and real injustice being done, nor will it be a kind of ecstasy of like, we're going to get everybody and get them and squeeze them all, which I'm sorry, that will look unjust to the American people, even with a good new media consensus building. So I think we have to, A, get it right on the merits, and B, then rely on the good common sense of the American people and new media to help develop a consensus where it's like, yes, these people have been dealt with justly and mercifully. And so we will not tolerate any further reprisals. This is how things will be done, and we'll go back to making America great again in this form of justice.
Yeah, I'm so glad you said that. It does suit Trump himself. He's going to fight hard. He's going to come back at you. But then he does have this quality of saying, okay, this is over now, and we can be friends. As he said once on a network I won't name, if I didn't do that, I wouldn't have any friends. So I have to forgive them in the end and bring everything back. That seems plausible to me. So 60 seconds we have left. How likely do you think that this is? Is the Trump administration showing any signs that they're moving in this direction?
I've been talking with people in the administration. I think this argument is a serious one that they're taking seriously. I heard in Pam Bondi's testimony good signs that she was going to be very seriously focused on a kind of restoration of good faith. She used the term herself, and that she was going to sort of make that a focus of her administration as Attorney General. So I'm very hopeful that this is a kind of, in one sense, a layup. Like, this is a feature. Obviously, she has to do everything else. But this should be a kind of apple of the eye and should be put in the forefront of everyone's minds, that perjury and lying is no longer acceptable because that's how lawfare is done.
Absolutely. Very well said. Matt, thanks so much for joining us. Just a very thoughtful conversation.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Good to see you both.
Peterson, when we look at it, it is such an important topic because, right, we want the wins. We want that red meat. We want everything. But to do it the right way, you don't want to go through and, 10 years from now, just say, oh, there's actually further division because of the way that you set out to solve the problems that are clearly problems right now.
Yeah, it's a very important point. And it doesn't mean to stop winning. I mean, he's saying prosecute, like bring justice to the situation. But remember that when you do that, you have to do that with an eye to the public and say, we're going to restore trust in these institutions. We don't want it to be back and forth, people just flinging stuff at each other. And that means don't give the other side the opportunity to make that case too, right? Convince the people who are able to be persuaded right now that this is really a restoration of justice by forcing people to tell the truth. It's a cogent argument. It's a good argument, and he's a good cogent guy.